So for today, do a quick check-in just to kind of catch up from break, so I get a little glimpse into your lives. And then we're gonna jump into continuing talking about evolution. So we started talking about evolution before the break. We talked about evidence and did a little checkpoint quiz thingy. So I'm gonna introduce another piece of the puzzle, and we're gonna do a little online activity. And then there's a little exit ticket at the end there. So
I mean, no, you like my second favorite?
I'll take it. All right, so on Canvas, as a reminder, I tried to kind of clean it up a little bit because our last unit module was very long because I put literally every single assignment just on the page. So instead, I just made a page for today. So if you go to April 5th/6th, because today's April 6th, you'll get to this page, tells you a little bit about what we're gonna do, our goals and stuff, and then the agenda's here with everything linked in. So the first thing we're gonna start with is the back from break check-in. Okay, and just in a text box, you're gonna tell me two things. I want you to tell me how your spring break went. Did you go somewhere? Did you stay at home? Did you spend time with family, friends? Did you just do your own thing? Either way, it's cool, just wanna know. And the other thing that I want to know is what is motivating you to get through the last 8 weeks? Because at this point, we are 2 months from saying that we have survived the 2020-2021 school year, which I know seems like it started forever ago, but we're almost there. So what is motivating you to get through the last 8 weeks that we have left? So as a reminder, we've been talking about the theory of evolution. And again, evolution in just the term is a change over time, which we can use to talk about technology changing over time, Pokemon evolving into bigger, better things, and even living things having been different millions or thousands of years ago. So before break, we talked about evidence. We answered the question, how do we know that things have changed over time? So we talked about different pieces of evidence that come together to give us the same conclusion. So we talked about embryology, which is looking at these embryos over here. We looked at different embryos of these vertebrates and recognized that they look so similar, meaning that they probably had a common ancestor thousands or millions of years ago, even though they look different as adults, really, really underdeveloped. Sorry, I thought I was going crazy, but it's next door. Yeah, it's a game. We're going to play that one today, too. It's part of the activity that we're doing today. We're going to eat some birds. No, we're going to eat some moths. Yes. So embryology is one. The other ones were anatomy. So like vestigial structures, structures that had a purpose at one point, but kind of no longer do, suggest that at some point we needed it, like whales and their pelvic bone. We also look at homologous structures. So the arm, leg, fin, and wing of all of those organisms. Even though they do different things, they look structurally the same, suggesting that they also had a common ancestor. We also looked at the similarities between DNA sequences and protein sequences. The more you have in common, the more related you are to that person or that thing. And then lastly, fossils, primarily looking at transitional fossils from fish to four-limbed organisms and the in-betweens. So we answer the question, how do we know? We talked very briefly about Charles Darwin. He is like the guy that we usually think about when we talk about evolution. He's known as the father of evolution. And really this whole thing started when he went on this 5-year voyage on the HMS Beagle. He went on as a naturalist. His job was pretty much to go to these places and write down observations he made about living things, the animals, the plants, anything he saw. While he was in South America, primarily the Galapagos, he noticed that there are these birds called finches. They're all the same type of bird. They're all finches. But he noticed that they have different beaks. Some were long and skinny, some were short and fat. And he was wondering, why the heck are they so different for being the same kind of bird? So then this whole thing with changing over time kind of happened. And he wrote this book called On the Origin of Species. Either way, a big contribution that he made is proposing how evolution happens. And how it happens is through this process called natural selection. Natural selection, and a very, very basic way of talking about it, is saying that organisms that are best adapted to their environment are more likely to survive and therefore reproduce than others. And in the animal kingdom and just, in biology overall, a main point of life is just to survive, to reproduce, to pass your genes off to the next organism. That's like success. If you do that, yes, you won at life. So organisms that are better adapted for their environment, that can get food, that can find, that can find housing, that can fight off predators, that's able to survive and reproduce, equals success. So today we're going to do an activity looking at peppered moths and how they help us understand this idea of how natural selection happens. Okay, so on Canvas, back on this page, it says April 5th or 6th. The third bullet point, because we just did this was the little 6 slides of notes we did, is the peppered moths activity. So I also have hard copies. Would anyone like a hard copy? I'm going to pull this up because I don't want to make a trillion copies of it. But this is what your assignment should look like, the peppered moth game. So either on here or on the Canvas page, there's 2 different places you can get to the link. And this is the page that it'll bring you to, either that or it might look like this, either way. So in this activity, you're going to learn a little bit more about peppered moths, like what they are, what they look like. Then you're going to learn about how they're important in how we see natural selection kind of play out. I think that this document is organized pretty well. So all the bolded headers are going to be found, are different pages that are on this website. So peppered moth, you're going to look here for the answer. Natural selection, same thing. Dr. Kettlewell, same thing. And you will also play the game. So if you heard from next door, the birds chirping, that's the game that we're gonna play. Alrighty, so hopefully we are trucking along here. And if you've gotten to question 11 or the game, awesome. If not, I'm sure you're almost there. Really quickly, just want to take a quick interjection just to kind of sum up what you've hopefully been learning so far. So hopefully you learned about the peppered moths, how they're found in North America, England, Europe. And there are 2 types. There's a light and a dark variation, just different colors. And this particular activity is focusing on this forest in Manchester, Great Britain, where in the early 1900s, there were light colored trees. And after the Industrial Revolution, which essentially was just when we started using a lot of factories to mass produce things, factories burn coal, and that coal makes a very dark, gross smoke that comes out of those factories. Over years, that smoke kind of settled on the nearby forest and turned the trees from a light color to a dark color. So here we have this game. In this game, you'll notice that on your paper, where the heck did I do? There it is. You'll notice on your paper, you have a little table where you collect data. So you're going to play this game twice, once with a light forest and once with a dark forest. And essentially the whole point of it is that you are a bird and you are hungry and you want to eat moths. So if you click on the light forest, this is what pops up. So you'll just eat moths like normal, just eat the ones that you see. Every time you hear a crunch, that's the delicious sound of the exoskeleton just crunching in the beak of the bird. And every time you miss, you hear the chirping of the bird. Okay, I think this goes on for about a minute where it just has you catch those moths. And at the bottom, it's collecting data. And at the end of it, I keep missing. This will pop up And this experiment starts with 50% light moths and 50% dark, so very equal distribution of each. So after you had the bird eat the moths, it'll then tell you how the population changed. Are there more light ones than dark ones, more dark ones than light ones, or did you end with 50-50 just like you started? In this little, after it says simulation complete, it tells you how many you ate, what you started with, and what you ended with. So here I started with 50-50. I ended with 92% light, 8% dark. And that's what I'll put in these boxes. And when you're done with the game, make sure to go ahead and do these analysis questions. One of these questions will be your exit ticket. So if you get to it today, the exit ticket's going to be easy breezy, beautiful. So the exit ticket is just the one question. And I think, like I said, it's 14 on the assignment that we just did. And it's explain the concept of natural selection using your moths as an example. So remembering what natural selection is, I gave you the definition earlier. So being well adapted to your environment, meaning that you are able to survive and reproduce. How did we see that play out in the moths? Okay, so like I said, I think it's number 14 on your worksheet. So you can just copy and paste, that's fine. But don't forget to do this as well. And when you're done with your paper, you can go ahead and turn it in as well.